anatomy is the rear pocket. So let me begin, if I may, where this starts. That's with the dollar. Now, some of you have heard me on radio shows, and I made a statement that Mr. Fromm gave to me. It was back, maybe 3.5 years ago, in a conversation we were having, and he said, "Chaplain, if it's written on a piece of paper, it's worth the paper it's written on." Folks, please, I plead with you to examine this in every facet. I want you to think about stocks and bonds. I want you to think about IRAs and 401ks. I want you to think about notes. And please, so many of my friends have gone into the dinar. Oh, I beg of you, listen to what we're going to say. Social Security, retirement funds, accounts of every kind. If it's written on a piece of paper, it's worth the paper it's written on. And Rodney, I'm going to rely on you at this point. You're in the business. Try to explain some of these things, if you will.
Well, from a business perspective, I'd like to explain some of the financial tools that you just mentioned, such as 401k, IRA, and particularly. But I'd like to begin by just, I don't have to validate what you say, but in order to offer validation to the viewers, understand that I was told by Congressman Walter B. Jones, a North Carolina congressman to the United States Congress, that in the same time frame of which you speak, by 2012, our dollar is going to be worthless. I also had the privilege of knowing...
Now, wait a minute. Now, am I understanding you correctly that a congressman of the United States of America made a statement directly to you that the dollar within 1 year will be what?
Well, he said in 2010, he said that by 2012, or within 18 months or roughly, that the dollar was going to be pretty much worthless. And then just in 2011, I had a United States senator. I promised him that I would not mention his name because we were having a private conversation. And he said, yes, by the end of 2012, the dollar will be worthless. 2 United States elected officials in Washington, D.C. have said this to me. And on our website at financialleadership.co, I also have a video clip of Warren Buffett saying the exact same thing, that the U.S. paper dollar will be dead very soon.
Now, I understand, this is startling. It almost gives me chills. That's exactly what Mr. Ken Fromm told me 3 years ago. He said, "Chaplain, the dollar will be dead by the end of 2012. Now, please, folks, I want you to hear this very carefully, because you cannot misinterpret what the elite... I have learned over 35 years that I've been quoting these people to take their words exactly as they said it. Mr. Fromm did not say to me, the dollar will be non-existent. Now, please, please note my wording. He did not say the dollar will be non-existent. He said the dollar will be dead by the end of 2012. That means that its purchasing power will have diminished to the point that it's exactly what the congressman is saying to you. Now, I also understand that he equated this to Greece.
Well, I don't think that the congressman did not equate it to Greece. Okay. But from what we know, I mean, just those of us who are in the know, understand that what's happened in Greece with the riots, the austerity measures, which means cut back on government spending at all levels, and the uproar and political uproar, we know that that's coming here.
Mr. Co-President Nigel Farage, freedom and democracy.
Well, good morning, Mr. Van Rompuy. You've been in office for 1 year, and in that time the whole edifice is beginning to crumble. There's chaos. The money's running out. I should thank you. You should perhaps be the pin-up boy of the Eurosceptic movement. But just look around this chamber this morning. Just look at these faces. Look at the fear. Look at the anger. Poor old Barroso here looks like he's seen a ghost. You know, they're beginning to understand that the game is up. And yet, in their desperation to preserve their dream. They want to remove any remaining traces of democracy from the system. And it's pretty clear that none of you have learned anything. You know, when you yourself, Mr Van Rompuy, say that the euro has brought us stability, I suppose I could applaud you for having a sense of humour, but isn't this really just the bunker mentality? You know, your fanaticism is out in the open. You talked about the fact that it was a lie to believe that the nation state could exist in a 21st century globalised world. Well, that may be true in the case of Belgium, who haven't had a government for 6 months, but for the rest of us, right across every member state in this union, and perhaps this is why we see the fear in the faces, increasingly people are saying, we don't want that flag, we don't want the anthem, we don't want this political class, we want the whole thing consigned to the dustbin of history. And we had the Greek tragedy earlier on this year, and now we have the situation in Ireland. Now I know that the stupidity and greed of Irish politicians has a lot to do with this. They should never ever have joined the euro. They suffered with low interest rates, a false boom and a massive bust. But look at your response to them. What they're being told, as their government's collapsing, is that it would be inappropriate for them to have a general election. In fact, Commissioner Rehn here said they had to agree their budget first before they'd be allowed to have a general election. Just who the hell do you think you people are? You are very, very dangerous people indeed. Your obsession with creating this euro state means that you're happy to destroy democracy. You appear to be happy for millions and millions of people to be unemployed and to be poor. Untold millions must suffer so that your euro dream can continue. Well, it won't work, because it's Portugal next. With their debt levels of 325% of GDP, they're the next ones on the list, and after that I suspect it will be Spain. And the bailout for Spain would be 7 times the size of Ireland, and at that moment all of the bailout money has gone. There won't be any more. But it's even more serious than economics, because if you rob people of their identity, if you rob them of their democracy, then all they are left with is nationalism and violence. I can only hope and pray that the euro project is destroyed by the markets before that really happens.
Thank you.
Because just like we can predict the weather, knowing what's coming from the west to the east in the United States, if we see a thunderstorm coming, we know if it's coming from the west to the east, it's coming our way. And the political climate, or the economic climate, transfers from the east to the west. So what happened in Japan 20 years ago with their economic downfall has been slowly working its way to the United States, across the Middle East, across Europe, and now into the United States. As you see days of rage across the Middle East and in Europe, and now in 2011 it happened in Washington and in New York, these days of rage are orchestrated by organizations such as the Muslim Brotherhood, labor unions, and other organizations who exist solely for the purpose of disturbing the normal cycle of life for Americans or for any country. So when these people are purposefully demonstrating, oftentimes violence occurs when they're the ones who are going to be on the downside of any type of economic change. That's why I teach financial leadership, Chaplain, because management assumes things will stay the same. Money management is what's been taught forever, and it assumes things will stay the same, and it's a reactive approach to finances. I teach financial leadership, and this is why I've gotten the title, the father of financial literacy, because I want people to understand how to be proactive in their teaching, or in their understanding and their actions. When they're proactive, and they take a proactive approach to their finances, they can anticipate change. Sometimes they can initiate change, but they will always benefit from change. So a while ago when you mentioned 401ks and IRAs and such, my advice to our viewers, and I need to stress this extremely clearly, if you have a 401k account, if you have an IRA, an individual retirement account, and these things are in mutual funds, please, please do yourself a favor, get out of those mutual funds immediately, because these mutual funds are the first to react negatively to any type of economic pressure. Secondly, mutual funds are a timeshare approach to investing. For example, I shared this with you at the dinner table the other night about the difference between someone wanting to have a home at the beach in a resort area, for example, and they wanted to have that place there anytime they wanted to go. You have two choices, basically. You can buy a home there, and you can go there anytime you want to. You can rent it out for income, or you can sell it for a substantial return later. Or you can go down the road and get a timeshare. Okay? Now, timeshare is a great vacation alternative for millions of people. Don't mean to knock timeshare, but you need to understand that timeshare in and of itself means that you own 1 week in one room of the hundreds or thousands that there are in that complex. That's the way the difference between mutual funds and owning stocks is. The stock is you've made a complete commitment to owning that piece of property. You own a share of stock. That share of stock will produce dividends for you. You can reinvest those dividends and it will buy more stock in that particular company. You can take dividends as a quarterly payout and it will produce income for you. Or you can sell it and it'll produce a revenue, a one-time revenue. Mutual funds, on the other hand, are made up of, for example, let's take the Growth Funds of America. It's made up of 600 different stocks. Now, you may have Apple stock in there, okay? It's part of the portfolio. Apple stock may pay 70 cents dividends. If you have $100 invested in that mutual fund, let's say you own 1/100th of one share of Apple stock. Well, at 70 cents dividend per share, that means you may receive a dividend of 0.7 cents per quarter. That's eaten up in fees and administrative costs and things like that. It dramatically reduces your ability to earn any type of return on your money. Mutual funds in and of themselves are a major volatile tool. And you'll never get wealthy owning mutual funds. For example, and I'm talking so much about mutual funds because so many people have them that make up their IRA and their 401k. That's the financial tool that makes it to where they're going to have retirement money when they need it. So I'm spending a lot of time explaining this to hopefully help you, the viewer, understand why you've got to get out of these things. Because the 401k, for example, before 1980, when 401k was introduced as a primary retirement planning vehicle, Ted Benna was hired by a large bank, to get them out of the retirement or pension plan business so that they would not have to pay pensions to employees 20, 30 years out. Well, he found this little loophole in the IRS code of section 401, subchapter K, which allowed for high wage earners to defer a bit of their earnings tax-wise so that they wouldn't have to pay taxes on it up front. He said in a Time magazine interview in 1981 that he knew right away this would not be advantageous to the blue-collar, everyday American worker unless the employer matched those contributions. My friends, if your employer is not matching your contributions in that 401, first off, get out right away. Don't contribute another dime. But you've got to understand the danger that these 401ks, these IRAs, anything tied to the stock market today that is sold to you by a bank or an investment firm, you need to get out of these things. There may be some opportunities in some stock to own some particular stocks that may be advantageous to you in the long run. And everyone, you've got to take heed because some paper will only be worth what the paper is written on, like you say.
If it's written on a piece of paper, it's worth the paper it's written on. And there is one currency, quite interesting, throughout all of history, there is one currency that has never gone to zero. It's found in Genesis chapter 2, verses 11 and 12, the first metal ever mentioned in the Bible. Now, being a person who has studied the Bible all of my life, I'm 75 years of age. I've been a minister of the gospel for over 50 years. And I know a first mention principle in the Scriptures. The first time that something is mentioned, it'll always have that same meaning throughout all of the rest of the Scriptures. And in Genesis chapter 2 it is, verse 11 and 12, it mentions the first metal ever mentioned in the Bible. It's gold, and it says it's good.